You're listening to an Airwave Media Podcast.
Hi, and welcome back to week 2. Yay, we did it. I came back. Hooray. So, I have to stop saying so much, but I love saying so much because then I say it so much. Oh no. No. Welcome back, everybody, to Who Did What Now, the history podcast with me, your host, Katie Charlwood, gin drinker and reader of books. Disclaimer. This is not your history class. For instance, I was going to call this the fuck word history show, but my mother said no. So we're moving back in time a little bit from last week. We spoke about the 1970 Miss World contest. And now we're going back to the 50s and 60s. It's fine. I mean, it's going to go up to the 80s, but we're starting in the 50s. It doesn't matter.
Being a part of a royal family might seem enticing, but more often than not, it comes at the expense of everything else, like your freedom, your privacy, and sometimes even your head. Wondery's new podcast, Even the Royals, pulls back the curtain on royal families, past and present, from all over the world, to show you the darker side of what it means to be royalty. From icons like Grace Kelly, Oscar-winning actress turned Princess of Monaco, who the world saw as the ultimate good girl. She mastered playing a happy wife and mother, but beneath it all, she was desperately lonely. Grace spent her whole life working towards perfection, and it ultimately cost her her happiness. Or King Ludwig II from Bavaria. He was only 18 when his father died, leaving the crown to him and a duty to rule that he never wanted. He refused to lead, and used the funds from the royal treasury to further his extreme love of opera, but this choice eventually cost him the crown and his life. Follow Even the Royals on the Wondery app or wherever you get your podcasts. You can binge Even the Royals ad-free right now on Wondery Plus.
One of my favourite people in history, Grace Kelly, Princess of Monaco. You probably have a perception of what you think Grace Kelly was like. Let me tell you, that perception was wrong. Fucking wrong. I'm so happy. I love Grace Kelly. Grace Kelly lived her life the way any of us would if we were Grace Kelly. Oh, the beauty, the confidence, and allegedly, the ability to have multiple orgasms through penetration. Which would explain a lot later on. Just you wait. Grace Kelly was the daughter of John Brendan Kelly. I don't know if he was an Irish immigrant or his parents were Irish immigrants. Somebody was an Irish immigrant. Whatever. They ended up having a building company because Ireland... Effectively what happened is all the Irish people fled Ireland, moved to different countries and built everything for everybody else. So being Irish, very Catholic. Grace Kelly grew up a strict Catholic, except for the banging her way through Hollywood situation, and she attended Mass regularly. Just keep that in your mind. So, surprise, surprise, Kelly, John Brendan Kelly, was an arse. Her father was the business. He was quite wealthy, some might say. Flush, others might say. Her uncle George was a playwright, and she spent a lot of time with him because her dad wasn't really that keen on her existence in general. Her dad was a womanizer. A man, I know what you're saying. A man in the 20s and 30s? What? No. Shock. Gasp. And he made sure that they had a very strict Catholic upbringing. I'm nailing this point home. Not quite nailing it on the cross. I'm going to hell for that one. This is the funny thing. He didn't think that his daughter, Grace, was his prettiest daughter. Grace Kelly, who looks what you would imagine a beautiful person to look like. If you were to imagine a beautiful person, you'd think Grace Kelly. And to add insult to injury, her dad said that acting was a slim cut above street walking. Good on you there, John Brendan. No worries. That's some positive reinforcement there for your girl. No worries. So she wanted to go to New York to be an actress, and he's like, fine, but you're staying in the Barbizon Hotel. So the Barbizon Hotel for Women was very strict. If you've ever seen Ancient Carter, I don't know if they do that one or they have something that's similar, but and that's where Peggy Carter stays in the Agent Carter TV show. Something too like that. So the Barbizon Hotel, that's where sort of everybody stayed. Everyone stayed there. So Ali McGraw, Candice Bergen, Liza Minnelli, and just everybody. Everybody stayed there. Because it was where respectful ladies stayed. So the Barbizon Hotel, it was very much like no men above the first floor. There was a code of conduct. There was a fucking dress code. But Grace had to get her goods going. And goods going they did. So when she was 19, she had a Jewish boyfriend. So naturally, her mother, Mrs. Kelly, assumed that he was going to defile her daughter. Oh, honey, no. No, she was... So naturally, Mrs. Kelly's digging around in a suitcase and finds condoms. And she throws an absolute shit fit. And what does Gracie do? She goes straight to New York, goes to his apartment, and bangs him. The Shah of Iran was in love with Grace and her magical vagina, and he begged her to marry him, and he even gave her some sweet, sweet jewellery to sweeten the deal, and she noped out of that one. But she kept the jewellery anyway, because damn right. Sir, do not offer someone a gift, A, if it has conditions, and B, if you're going to demand it back if things go sour. Not cool. The aforementioned Jewish boyfriend of the condom saga clocked that the, frankly, fabulous emerald bracelet that Grace was wearing was one that Ali Khan gifted to his lovers, and so he let her out of there. And Grace was like, bye-bye. I mean, she was probably classier than that. I'm thinking, I wish you luck on your future endeavours. Fun fact, Grace never actually got it on with Gary Cooper or Cary Grant. Good for her. I mean, she did cause a bit of an uproar because she did do a lot of her co-stars, including Clark Gable and Mogambo when she was... After that, she was shagging William Holden, who was married, and Grace was very Catholic, you know, and even with all of her extracurriculars, she never actually missed mass, which that's just skill at that point. Anyway, so she's screwing William Holden, and Holden's wife was Protestant, and Grace thought was that he could just chuck the wife and marry her instead. Holden, however, did not agree, because as far as Grace was concerned, like, in the eyes of God, you know, you're not really married because you're married a Protestant and I'm Catholic, yada yada yada, whatever. And next, Ray Milland in Dial M for Murder. This almost destroyed her career because Mrs. Milland was a good buddy of Hedda Hopper. So Hedda Hopper was the gossip columnist of like the 40s and 50s. She was it. She could make or break a career. And she publicly roasted Grace for getting it on with Ray. Oh, and then after that, there was the sitch with Bing Crosby. Ugh. And he wanted to marry her, but she just wanted the ride, you know? Yes. After that, there was Oleg Cassini, and he proposed to the effervescent Grace. But her good Catholic parents shut that down. There was no way that their girl was marrying someone twice divorced because of sacrilege and shit. During the time she's engaged to him, he confessed like years later that she had an abortion during that time. Which, I mean, there's no way to confirm or deny it, but maybe she did. Who knows? And also, good for her. Your body, your choice. You look after yourself. So in 1955, she wins an Oscar for The Country Girl, and she was up against Judy Garland. Now, the legend goes that Grace was enjoying a lovely evening with Marlon Brando, and Judy Garland phones her, screaming down the phone, calling her a bitch and saying that Grace stole the Oscar from her. And then, at some point, I don't know whether this was before or after that, but Judy Garland was asked if Grace Kelly was a nymphomaniac, and her response was, "If you could calm her down." That's fucking savage, Judy. So, back to the men. Grace had an affair with Jean-Pierre Aumont. He proposed, and he was Jewish, and parents vetoed that. And then Prince Rainier III of Monaco bursts into the scene. And this dude just really wanted to marry a beautiful American starlet. I mean, first of all, there's all the inbreeding in European royalty, so, I get it. But secondly, think of the stamps. Such a lovely profile. And thirdly, the Grimaldis are a petty, petty bunch. The Grimaldi is the royal family of Monaco, in case you're wondering. Initially, Rainier wanted to marry Marilyn Monroe, but she was deemed unsuitable for a myriad of reasons. So here's the thing. Courting is weird. There's chaperones and other nonsense to be followed, and so they barely saw each other before they got married. So technically, the courtship lasted a year, but they didn't really see each other for more than... Before they could get the marriage going, the Grimaldi family, again, the royal family of Monaco, sent a doctor over to Grace to make sure she could conceive. Because, you gotta keep those bloodlines going, just ask Henry VIII. So Grace was so worried that the doctor would discover that she had been, deflowered several times over, that when she was being examined, she told the doctor that she had actually busted her hymen playing field hockey. Whether he bought it or whether he just wanted an easy life, I don't know. Either way, grand. So Monaco, a fledgling country, expected a dowry. So they wanted a $2 million dowry, which they referred to as substantial. Her father, John Brendan, he was like, fuck. So he did eventually pay it, because royalty. I mean, he wasn't happy about it, but he was a dick, so it doesn't matter. Also, Grace had to sign over custody of any future children they had if they ever got divorced. Because, Grimaldis are asshats. 2 weeks after the official announcement of their engagement, the Los Angeles Herald-Examiner published the first of a 10-part series entitled My Daughter, Grace Kelly, Her Life and Romances by Mrs. John B. Kelly. So this was basically circulated to Harris newspapers all across the country, and Grace's mother produced a stream of revelations regarding all the men in her life. So this was at the point where even Prince Rainier said that, how could her own mother do that? Come on. So when she had to travel over, so they had to travel over to Monaco and they went by boat, and it became a very big thing. So before the wedding happens, all of this, his family are basically stressing her out to the point that she just starts losing weight. She is freaking out. I think she's chain smoking. I can't remember if I've just imagined her chain smoking or whether she's actually chain smoking, but I guess we'll figure out. At the time when she was getting engaged, Grace Kelly was still under contract to MGM. They were pissed off because as a royal, she wouldn't be working anymore. She was a money ticket. She'd won an Oscar. She was, again, one of the most beautiful people to ever have existed ever. In the end, MGM actually stage managed the wedding, which is fair enough, As a royal, you're expected to produce heirs, but she got on that right away. Right out of the gate, she got pregnant on her honeymoon. Yeah, and she used a bag to cover up the bump for a long time, which is why it's actually a thing now. There's a Grace Kelly bag, or the Grace bag, when the whole point is it's designed to hide a baby bump. So they're married, and it turns out marrying someone you don't really know isn't the best idea. I mean, maybe spend a week or more with someone before getting betrothed. It's, just saying. So Prince Rainier was, how do I put this? What's the term? A moody bastard, right? He once shattered a glass when Grace cut her hair short without consulting him. Mate, fuck you. Oh, and he would storm off and ignore her and or go to sleep. That was how he finished a fight. That was how he avoided fights. That was his signal. I don't know if you've ever been ignored after a fight or in the middle of a fight, or what should be the middle of a fight, and they just ignore you. Like, wow. How little do you mean to them if they will not acknowledge you? That's some manipulative bullshit, and I'm fucking sick. I hate it so much, but no, I'm gonna get angry. No. So Grace just throws herself into parenting, raising her kids, full on mother time. Here's the thing, I don't understand why he could be such a shitty human when, if it wasn't for Grace Kelly, he would be fucked. So Grace Kelly effectively, single-handedly, saved Monaco from imploding. It was nearly bankrupt, hence the need for a dowry, and it was about to get annexed by France. Boom, Grace arrives and flipped everything around. That was how, so Monaco became the place to be. It became, a gambling paradise. It was for, the elite. And this happened because it was the only way to save it, effectively. Now, the prince was irritated that he had to have his picture taken all the time. Honey, no, they were not interested in you. I'm sorry. I'm not sorry. It's sort of a price to pay. You don't want your photo taken, but you want to marry a fucking starlet the whole point of which is to make your country popular. I mean, everybody loved Grace. She was huge. The people of Monaco loved her. The foreign dignitaries loved her. She had grace. She had poise. She had that skill of making men think she was, attentive. Anywho, I get mad at the thing. Oh, I want to go to the top of the mountain, but I don't want to have to climb to the top of the mountain. Well, there's only one way up, bucko. So put on your fucking hiking boots and smile on the way up. So Grace Kelly always wanted to go back into acting. She was like, I'll do this, but I'll go back. So Hitchcock wanted Grace to star in Marnie, with Sean Connery. But MGM, remember them? They were pissed because she still was under contract. Although it was the entire Principality of Monaco who vetoed the idea, torch and pitchfork style. Effectively, they didn't want to see her play a thief who was being seduced or is going to seduce Sean Connery. Either way, they were not into that. They were like, not our princess. When the 10th anniversary, their wedding anniversary hits, Prince Rainier asks her what she wants, and she says she wants a year off. But instead, she ends up having kid number 3. Oh, yeah, so sidebar, forgot this. Back in the USA, Grace's brother he basically left his wife and kids and married a trans woman. And they were happy. The media were not. But Grace effectively completely supported her brother in this, love who you love, man. Grace decides to just up and fuck off to Paris. Because why get divorced when you can just go to another country? And then she boinks through a conveyor belt of younger men because sure, why not? Then it gets to a point where Grace and Rainier, they actually reconcile and things start going really well again. So then as she gets older, they reconcile, her and Rainier actually reconcile. I guess old age mellowed him out a wee bit. So September 14th, 1982. And this is where it gets somber. Grace and her youngest daughter, Princess Stephanie, basically they were arguing over whether Stephanie was to go to the prestigious Institute of Fashion Design in Paris or race driving school with her then boyfriend, Paul Belmondo. Now, so they're filling up the car with, gowns and outfits and bags and all their holiday stuff that they had. And they realise that once they filled up the car, there isn't space for Grace, the princess, and then the driver. So Grace is like, you know what, I'll do it. I'll drive. It's fine. Instead of maybe taking some stuff out and sending it later, but whatever, okay, do your own thing. And it's basically what's supposed to be like a 35-minute drive. So they're going back to Monaco from their vacation residence. So 10 minutes into the journey, they're heading down this narrow, winding road. And it's leading out of the village of Litterby. They're in this brown Land Rover, right? And Grace has been complaining about a headache all day, but so there's a hairpin turn and the car basically jerks back and forth and the sides are scraping on the mountain. And so the car behind blasts the horn. And there's the next car after it called the Devil's Curse. Ooh, spooky. And the car just like suddenly accelerates and to like 60 miles per hour and just flies over the edge. Going over treetops and rolling down an embankment and just smashes into a tree at the bottom and rolls onto a pile of rocks. So it basically crushes the passenger side door and the roof. And neither passengers are wearing a seatbelt, so Stephanie and Grace are just bollocked around the car. So Stephanie manages to climb out the driver's side because every other option is just crushed, and she's like hysterical and sobbing, and the ambulance crew has to pull Grace from it. The legend is that this is the same road used in To Catch a Thief. It's not. It's actually a wee bit. They're actually like a good bit apart. Stephanie basically gets pulled out, and Grace has been thrown into the back. This is why some people think that Stephanie was the one who was driving, because she was behind, because she got out the driver's side, but like there was no other way to get out the car, So Grace gets taken to hospital in Monaco, and the story goes, if she'd been taken to a hospital over in Nice, which had better equipment, that she may have had a better chance of surviving. But by the time the doctors realised she was there was like how bad the brain damage was from just being smashed around the car, like she had an irreversible coma. There was nothing they could do. After the car itself was like, the Land Rover was like physically crushed into a metal cube and then just dropped into the ocean, just gone. On the 18th, Grace Kelly is buried, and the funeral is attended by the King and Queen of Belgium, the Queen of Spain, the Prince of Sweden, the Prince of Sweden, Prince Philip of Liechtenstein, Nancy Reagan, Princess Diana, and Cary Grant showed up. When they put her in her coffin, they tried to cover up her head wounds with like this big yellow wig, and it's ridiculous. But Stephanie couldn't attend the funeral because of her internal injuries, and she was in hospital with a neck brace. And Grace Kelly is buried in the very cathedral in which she was married. And that is the story of Princess Grace from Monaco, who lived her life as well as one could. And you gotta respect that. You gotta respect the drip. You're like, oh, this is really fun for quite a bit, and then it's like, oh, sad. Anyway, things you should watch. You should watch effectively anything with Grace Kelly in it. You should watch Dial M for Murder, Rear Window. You can watch The Country Girl, To Catch a Thief, and High Society is so good. It's so good. It's so good. You should just watch them all. It's brilliant. If you're really feeling up to it, you can listen to the song Grace Kelly by Mika, because it's fun. And I'm gonna go. And adios, au revoir, and auf Wiedersehen.